Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It's free comic book day weekend, so we should probably get right down into it. So Hank, let them know where we're going.
The comic book store?
All right, so it is the first weekend of May, and for us at BaseMint Comics, that's twofold. It is the free comic book day, which we're always excited about, and it also happens to be like where we live is obviously like you see the bike trail when we do the bike rides, and so we are kind of in this our neighborhood is butted up against this like 20-mile kind of nature preserve thing with a bunch of lakes and creeks and all sorts of stuff. And so every summer, first weekend of May, through I think like the end of September, they do this thing where they shut down like that stretch of road that goes through there. It's like a really like scenic drive, but they shut it down on Saturdays from like 6 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, and just leave the road open for families to bike through. So, you know, our usual route, which is through the woods, also is kind of like side by side to this scenic drive. So usually it's pretty exciting because it's like, oh, cool, we can go do this. And, you know, then we can hit up free comic book day. And we have just been hammered by this cold spell. And so yesterday morning, as we were planning our free comic book day, Saturday in the park, bike ride thing, I realized when we were going to do it, it was going to be like 35 degrees outside. And, you know, normally we do that, no problem, in December. But in May, no. It should be 70 and sunny when we're cruising up to the store on free comic book day to get our new books. So I was like, man, I got to pivot. By the way, this is taking place of Cornerbox Classics has been delayed because we're doing Cornerbox Classics, the free comic book day edition. Because here's what happened. When I woke up, I was like, there's no way I'm biking that poor kid 20 miles in 35-degree weather in May. That's not happening. And I had caught wind of the fact that the great Dave Michelini would be doing a signing in Cleveland at Carol and John's comic shop. Now, Dave Michelini it's interesting. Like, obviously, I grew up an X-Men guy, and Dave Michelini has never written the X-Men. So, not a writer that I was super familiar with. A few years back, I read Iron Man number 149 and 150, the Doom Quest storyline. This is something that I've had forever. And like one night I was like, this is like a couple years ago. And I was like, I should read, like it's been a while since I've read that. I should read that. And I enjoyed it the first time that I read it. But the last time when I read it a few years back, I was like, oh my God, this is like so good. And I was like, I've heard nothing but great things about the Dave Michelini Iron Man run. I'm like, why don't I own all of that? And so that became sort of this like hunt of like, that's how my Iron Man collection really like blossomed as far as back issues, which like led to the Cornerbox Classics thing, is me being like, like I've enjoyed all of his Spider-Man that I've read, you know, and I was like, and the Iron Man is just sort of this like, I know of it, but I need to fill in the gaps and get the whole run in them, and I adore it. So, caught wind of the fact that there would be this signing that he was doing, and I have been very much for years now, like my sole purpose for going to conventions is to meet creatives, thank them for the joy that they have brought to my life over the 35 years that I've been reading comics. Instead of like trying, like I'm hard pressed, and I'll get into this a little bit. It's like I'm a bit hard pressed sometimes to like find, I've been collecting comics for 35 years, and I've never, how some people are like, oh, I got out of it for a couple of years. Then no, I got into it. Marvel hooked me, and I have been going ever since. And so, I got a pretty good, I got a pretty sizable collection. So sometimes I feel like Free Comic Book Day is one of those interesting things for me because it's like I feel it necessary, and I think everyone else should too. And I sort of feel this way sometimes when I even go to shops like my wife and I. We go, her grandparents have a cabin up north. And we noticed one time when we were like in the town, she was like, oh, hey, there's a comic book store there. And so I went in, and I always feel like when I go into comic book stores, I'm like, I gotta buy something. And it's not like a compulsory thing, but it's more like I don't want to walk in and have that like, hey, anything you need. And it's like, I got everything. I got most everything that I need or that I want. There's nothing like off the top of my head where I'm like, hell yeah, I'm still searching for this. You know what I mean? And like sometimes the worst is like when I go into a store and it's like, there's gems out there where it's like, oh man, miles and miles of back issues and stuff like that. But some stores that you go into, it's like, oh, okay, there's a wall of Funko Pops. I'm not buying that. Anyways, point is, Free Comic Book Day is not free for the shops. They put on events and things and so on and so forth. So I do feel the need to find things that I could purchase as opposed to just grabbing the few Free Comic Book Days books that I would want. So I'd caught wind of the fact that Dave Michelini was going to be there at this shop, and I was like, it's 3 hours from the house, and having been in a travel a lot, and so like 3 hours in the car, 6 hours in the car, whatever, is that's nothing. Like, there was a Wednesday once where a book came out where I wanted to read it in New York when it came out, Secret Invasion #8. And I just decided that I was going to drive to New York to pick up my new comics at Midtown Comics because I'd never been. And so I was like, that'll be fun. I've never been to Midtown Comics. I'll just drive to New York and get my books, have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in Central Park while I read this Secret Invasion issue, and then I'll hop back in my car and I'll drive home. And I used to do this type of stuff all the time. And so Friday night, I looked at the missus, and I was like, hey, want to go to Cleveland tomorrow? And she was like, sure. And so off we went. We woke up in the morning, had some breakfast, hopped in the car, and headed out to Carol and John's comic shop because I wanted to make sure that I could go to my comic shop and Hank's comic shop on Free Comic Book Day so we could see all our friends. So I'll get to that. So we're going to cover the Carol and John stuff first, and then we're going to cover A to Z. So, 3-hour scenic drive, specifically hitting the avoid tolls thing. We make it to Carol and John's, and holy smokes, man, they had like a line. It was crazy. It was for the free comics. Sad to say that the David Michelini line was not as long as the Free Comic Book line, but that was good for me. So we get to the shop, and very much to my wife's delight, there was a room that had like 6 little tiny tables with play sets on them and a bunch of Superhero Squad figures. And so Hank was like, this is where I'm going to be at. I'm hanging out with these kids. This is what I'm going to do. I don't want to stand with Dad in line to meet this old fella. And I also, just a heads up, okay? Normally when I go to conventions, I try to keep like my signature pile to a decent amount for one, creative. I try not to go over 3 unless it's like a Claremont or somebody like that. I try to keep it. But for this, I was like, if I'm driving 3 hours, I'm going to bring friggin' everything that I want David Michelini to sign. So we get to the shop. Shop's very nice. Like I said, there was a room on the side that they had these toys. My wife was very appreciative. She told me a story when we were out to lunch afterwards, where she was telling me about how some of the other moms didn't appear to be, in her estimation, thrilled to be there post-child's soccer game for free comic book day. And so some of the kids were like playing with the toys, and they didn't know who they were like, I don't know who this one is. And she was like, oh, well, that's, she's been with me forever. And so she's got a very firm grasp on the Marvel Universe and knows a lot of Z-list characters. And so pretty soon she was like, I was like the hero to some of these kids as she was rattling off obscure Marvel characters to the kids. So they gave out this great free comic book day poster, the homaging the Amazing Spider-Man 300, letting you know that it was featuring David Michelini. It's Michelini, not Michelini. Michelini. So I hopped in his line with my books that I wanted to get signed. So I was going to go through those really quick. Like I said, all of the proceeds for his signature that he was gathering, which was not that much, went to charity. So then I was sort of like, went to an animal shelter. And so I was like, well, I definitely don't, and everything I get signed, I actually get mad when I can't get stuff personalized, because it's like, this stuff is in my collection. I am not flipping this stuff. Like, this stuff stays with me. All these books mean something to me. Some of these have been with me since I was a child. So, there's that. So, if you recently saw me purchase that CGC slabbed Amazing Spider-Man 298 signed by Todd McFarlane, where I cracked it out of there, it's a good thing I cracked it out of there, because I could have, I would have not been able to get David Michelini to sign it to Sean and Henry, and that is how I got him to sign everything. Was to me and Henry, and ever since Hank has shown up on the scene, that's how I've gotten my books signed, is to the both of us, because, these, one day they're going to be in his care, and he's going to be like, damn you, Dad, for getting them personalized, because he then can't flip them after he shoves me in a home, and he wants to take whoever his partner is on some vacation, and he goes to try to sell Spider-Man 298 cracked out of a slab, and he can't, because it says to Sean. Take that, kid. Viking funeral. That's all. Either he keeps them and reads them, or if he's like, Dad, I'm not into it, then he knows that the rule is Viking funeral. Currently, my kid, obviously, for years and years and years, he has loved Spidey and his amazing friends. Giving me great pause is the fact that it appears that his favorite character is the Green Goblin. And I get it. On the show, he's fun. He throws pumpkin pranks, right? But I am going to have to deal with, in a few years, explaining to him that he chucked Gwen Stacy off of a bridge, and that he's generally a bad guy. But for right now, he just thinks he's like a green little goblin dude that runs around, sings funny songs, and throws pumpkin pranks. And I love it. So I got Amazing Spider-Man number 312 assigned to us, because, it's a battle between Hobgoblin and Green Goblin. And the kid loves pumpkins. Loves them. He's just kind of past the point. For the longest time, he thought the color orange was pumpkin. Like, the orange was a fruit, but that the color was pumpkin. And he just, it's weird. As a parent, the thing we've been realizing is, obviously you get caught up in the new phase before you can even mourn the old phase that is already gone, but you have no idea that it's going to stop. He used to do this thing when he was a baby where he would, kiss my nose by, mouthing, and just one day that was gone. No warning, no nothing, just gone. It's a bummer. I love Christmas. That's well documented in the show. So Uncanny X-Men number 314 to Sean and Henry from David Michelini. I'm an X-Men guy through and through. David Michelini has written no X-Men. However, he did write Amazing Spider-Man number 351 featuring the Tri-Sentinel. So that counts. It's X-Men adjacent. And this is the first cover artwork and interior artwork on Amazing Spider-Man by the great Mark Bagley. And Mark Bagley is going to be at Motor City Comic Con in less than 2 weeks. And so I'm going to meet him. And I'm going to get him to sign this too. So those were the Spider-Man books that I got Mr. Michelini to sign to me. Up next, I was like, oh man, he had such a great run on Avengers. Short, but great. And it was while Byrne was drawing, like, come on, man. Byrne drawing the Avengers, David Michelini writing it. I was like, I'm all about this. So I got number 181 signed, again, to me and the little guy. And, you know, I mean, look at all those Avengers. Look at government stooge Henry Peter Gyrick giving him the business. Had to go with 196, okay? Like 195 and 196, the introduction. I was explaining to, you know, Ashley on the way to the show, or not show, to the thing while we were in the car. I was explaining Avengers number 195 and 196, where Taskmaster's introduced. And it's like, you know, all the goons that they get that are like bad guys? Like, he runs like a academy where he trains them. I'm like, it's so comic booky and so wonderful that I absolutely love it. And so, you know, I mean, this is a no-brainer anyways. And then last of the Avengers pile, couldn't pass up getting one of the greatest covers ever in comics, Avengers number 223. Then, so I could share the found a collection from a family member due to reading an old Avengers letters page where he kept his comics in a barn for years and years and years. I then got to tell him the story of the barn comics and had him sign Marvel Premiere number 47. So he enjoyed the barn comic book story and the fact that this book has only had 2 owners, me and my cousin Garth, because he traveled an hour and a half with his parents when they lived on a farm and picked this up from the grocery store when they went into town. And it sat in a family barn for years and years and years until I read a letters page that he wrote and was like, hey, wait a minute, and reached out to him and was like, you like comics? And he was like, yeah, Sean, I like comics. Still got them all. Want to come up and take a look and take what you want? And I sure did. So there's that. All right. Captain America, 1 issue. But man, is it a good one, because this is the issue that made me realize I also wanted to get the Mike Zeck run. The first 13 pages of this are written by Chris Claremont. The last 13 pages are written by David Michelini. And this is a story, again, I say this all the time. My favorite time period in Captain America is when he's living in the brownstone, because you get a ton of fun, interesting side characters that are living in the building with him. Bernie Rosenthal, and one of them is a firefighter. And this whole thing involves a bad guy who has been hired by a contractor who is burning down buildings so that he can buy up the real estate. And it's a great story. And like I said, this is kind of one of the things that like sparked me being like, man, I should get the Mike Zeck run. And then that turned into like, I should also complete the Mark Grunwald run. And so that was a David Michelini issue. All right. I know. You're like, holy smoke, Sean. There's so many more to go because we just got to Iron Man. Number 118. Classic cover. I think this might be the first appearance of Rhodey, but I just loved the, as a child, there were like, you know, certain things that like with play were fun. And one of those was like, you know, a crashing vehicle, which took way longer than gravity would actually allow it to take while you were playing with it, but who cares? And then the other was like, heroes are trapped in a thing that's flooding. That was also a ton of bath time fun. So this one sort of harkens back to those childhood memories. For me, which is one of the reasons why I wanted this one signed, the old Mission in Monaco, number 125. I've always loved this cover. It looks very James Bond-esque. Ant-Man's in this one, and this run is what makes me fall in love with Scott Lang and just think he's absolutely fantastic. Man, Ramita and Leighton are such a team on this book. Yeah, and this, like, the whole, like, deprived of his armor just makes me think of, you know, what they did in Iron Man 3, which was a lot of fun. So there's that. 126, very iconic cover. 128, this is also from the Barn Books. Not my favorite story, but I still, you know, come on, couldn't pass that one up. This one, however, is 149 and 150. Listen. Okay, first off, this storyline, spoilers for a book that is, but seriously, if anyone watching this has never read on Invincible Iron Man number 149 and 150, Doom Quest, it is an absolute blast. Doom has a lackey who's working with him, and it's the brother of a guy that he killed back in Fantastic Four number 85. Iron Man catches wind of the fact that one of his employees in Stark International has made a sale of weapons to Latveria, even though that's on the no-go list. So you get Tony Stark firing that dude immediately, and then Iron Man taking off to stop this shipment of weapons to Latveria. This pisses Doom off, so Doom goes at him. They converge, they're fighting in, like, the castle, and this Hauptmann dude, you know, lamenting in the thought bubbles that Doom had killed his brother and how much he hates Doom, but he's stuck working for him, sees a moment where the two, our hero Iron Man and our not hero Dr. Doom, are fighting on Doom's time platform. And so Hauptmann's like, fuck them. And turns the thing on, and they get blasted off to Camelot. And it's like, you know, Doom winds up with Morgana Le Fay. Iron Man winds up with Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Doom winds up leading like these like deceased knight skeletons against it's just like, dude, this is right up there with like Days of Future Past, where you're like, if you're like about, you know, the new storytelling of like writing for the trade. I mean, this is just like, this whole thing could be a movie, and it's 2 issues, and it's jam-packed. It's beautiful art. It's fantastic writing. It's just like, come on. 152. I love the stealth armor. I think it's really cool. Like that cover. So I was just like, well, that's a must for me. And then the final 2 is the first issue of Armor Wars and the last issue of Armor Wars are what I, like I said, that was quite a bit, but I was like, I'm not driving 3 hours to meet David Michelini, and I'll be damned if I'm going to I got to make his hand cramp. Yeah, so then got all that stuff signed. Hank was still having a blast in the little play area. My wife was thrilled that was there, because otherwise she would have just been like, he goes to comic book stores and he thinks like he's sort of at that age, and like our shop, you know, that I go to regularly, he's like, you know, they treat him great, and he's not destructive. It's just like, he's, you know, he goes through here and he gets to, you know, touch stuff. And so she was like, I was very happy that while you were in that line, he was just gleefully playing with, and they had lots of cool, I'm gonna post some of the stuff from you know, this on the BaseMint Comics Instagram, which, you know, give that a follow if you want. I try to be active on that one, but I also have like a personal one that I've had for years. And so like everything that I post on the BaseMint one, I post on my personal one, because, you know, everybody knows that I talk about comics. Holy smokes, my hands are out of control. I talk with my hands, but it's crazy right now. Anyways, you know how it is with the line to purchase stuff on Free Comic Book Day. You know, it's usually lined up all around the place. But this gave me a perfect opportunity to, like, look around Carolyn Johnson's. It's a very cool store. I'm not 100% sure on the history of it. I believe it's John's store that he started when he was 17 years old. And his mom was Carol. Like, at first when I heard the name, I was like, oh, I wonder if it's like a husband and wife duo. But I actually think, and I could be wrong, but I think it was his mom who helped him start it when he was 17. And I just thought that was really cool. And I saw a thing that he was talking about, like about the event, as I was like mapping out the plan to go. And he just he talked about comics in the way that I talk about comics, where it was like, yeah, and I know a lot of the things that I got signed were quote unquote keys, but it's like they're still important to me, and I know, like, I don't give a rip about that. I care about the stuff that like impacted me as a kid and as an adult, like that's what's important to me. So the nice thing is the way the line was wrapped to buy stuff from the actual shop. It was so long that I could kind of just get in line, even though I didn't have anything to buy, and sort of go through the line and look through the back issue bins so it was like I was able to find some stuff. So this is what I grabbed from that store. As I've talked about, I only need like a few issues. I have the first like 20 issues of Marvel Team Up in an essential, but I've been trying to like actually get those 20 issues, but I want to get it I want to do what I did yesterday, which was get them from shops. And so I was able to find Marvel Team Up number 9 and number 10. So I was thrilled to get those. I was pretty jazzed about that. Being a big X-Men guy and having a young one who is all about Spidey, I always grab fun-looking Spidey super stories when I can. And so this one had Storm on it, and I was like, hell yeah. Next book that I got, I have an Incredible Hulk run from 275 all the way until the end of Volume 1. I also have issue 273, which means I'm missing 274. And the other day, my good pal McGroovy showed off Incredible Hulk 274 because he likes getting train covers. And so I was like, oh man. And when I was like, let me check to see if they have 274, because that gap between 273 and 275 is pissing me off. So I was like, I'm going to see if they have 275 or 274. And they did. And I picked it up, and it made me think of McGroovy, which is always good. And then I have been, how I talked earlier, where I'm like, sometimes when I go into shops, I'm at a loss for what to look for, because there's stuff that I'm looking for, but it's not like, there's a good chance that some stores just won't even have it, especially if they're newer stores that don't have a lot of like back stock and stuff like that. I'm not looking for really anything modern, because I've been collecting everything I've wanted for 35 years without really. So lately, I've sort of been in the gaps where like I would have been like, oh, I'll get a trade of this instead of buying the single issues. I realize I just like single issues more than I like trades. I know some people are like, oh, it takes up less space. I just like, part of the thing that I love is letters, pages, ads, stuff that really like locks it into a particular time period. And so one of the books that I had was the Days of Future Past hardcover, because X-Men events and events in general were things that I tended to double dip on, where it was like, oh, I'll get the single issues as it goes, but then when they come out with some cool oversized hardcover with like back matter and interviews and stuff like that, I'd pick that up. And it was usually under the guise of like, well, if I go on vacation, I can, I'll take that. And that worked out great for years, like when we'd go on vacations and stuff like that. And I, because, I could read that stuff. Now I imagine that I, like, as opposed to like sitting on the beach reading Secret Wars, I'm probably going to be in the water tossing a little guy around, as opposed to sitting on the beach reading. And so I was like, I should probably just start getting rid of some of these traits. And this is a long-winded way to say that Days of Future Past thing, the only reason I had it in hardcover was I collected this 3-issue Wolverine miniseries called Wolverine Days of Future Past. It wasn't that great, but I'm a completist. But finding those single issues online was like more than I was ever going to want to pay for the issues. And so as I was standing there, I looked down, and sure enough, all 3 issues were sitting in a dollar bin. And everything was 50% off. So I was like, $1.50 for these 3 issues? Perfect. Happy free comic book day to me. Then I checked out, hung out with the kid a little while he played with some of the toys, took some photos, had some fun. And then we decided to, we were like, oh, we don't really know the area. And one of the things, like when we travel, my wife and I, now Henry, we don't necessarily, one of the rules kind of we have set in place is that, like, we don't eat anywhere that we could eat at home. You know, it's got to be, what's the point? So I didn't know the area very well, and I wanted to make sure that we could get back because, like, yeah, it's cool to go to a different store, but I want to support my store, because they treat me very well. So right next, like in the same plaza that Carol and John's comic shop was this diner. And so we were like, oh, all right, we'll just go over there. And it worked out perfectly because the missus is a very big fan of old Hollywood and classic films. Like, our DVD library is very much like a TCM vault. And she is very well versed in, like, not just the hits, but like she's like like how I am about Marvel, she is about classic Hollywood cinema. And so when we went into this diner, it was like the main dining level was like sunken, and I love a good sunken dining area. And then everything in the place was old Hollywood memorabilia, photos of people who had eaten at the restaurant, and even the menu, all of the items on the menu, all the sandwiches and stuff like that were like named, like I had Alana Lang. They were all named after old Hollywood actors and starlets and stuff. So it's always nice when we take a trip and do something that is sort of Sean and Hank focused, if we can in turn do something that gets her motor going. And that's exactly what an old Hollywood diner would do. So that was awesome. So it was like, this is perfect. Perfect day. So we had lunch at that thing. Little dude took a nap as we drove back so he could awake to our shop. And I gotta, like, our shop. So one of the things that I was going to talk about on Wednesday is Thursday is the 26th anniversary of my mom passing away. And she was a big part of getting me into comics, and nurturing that. And even like the road trip yesterday of us going down there to do this kind of harkened back to, there was a very core memory for me as a kid that I talked about even in the last episode, where, she just woke me up one Saturday and was like, let's find some comic book shops in the Yellow Pages all over the state, and we'll drive around and look at them and stuff like that. And due to time and all of us growing up, there's no like home. No one lives in a house that she would have ever visited. Everyone has moved. And there aren't really places that she's been where I feel like, her presence could be felt. Except this comic shop. She used to take me there when I was a kid, when we'd be in the area, because we didn't live, like, A to Z was not my comic shop growing up because we didn't live in the area. But if we were in the area, then sure enough, I'd start scheming from the back seat when I'd start to recognize buildings, and like, how can I convince her to stop, even though she probably was already going to, because that's the type of mom that she was. And so it's important to me due to the fact that she obviously, like, never gets the chance or opportunity to know her grandson, that it's nice to have a place that we go to where she was at some point. So there's that. And so we get there, and when the little guy walks through the doors, it's like he's Norm from Cheers. Like, everyone was like, he made it, because we got there like with an hour left of how, and I don't think they thought that we were going to make it. And they always have cake, and they saved the last piece of cake in the back room for him so he could sit in his favorite reading spot in the store and have a piece of cake. While I looked around and we picked out our free comics. And then I looked around to find things to purchase, because I like to support and not just, and the other thing is like, I came at the end of the night, and one of the owners was like, hey, you're here, like, go through and take all of the, because they know I do the Halloween thing where I pass out comics, and so they were like, everything that's left over, you just take. And I was like, that's very generous of you, and I know they pay for that. So I was like, keep them out today, keep them out Monday, and I'll take what's left on Wednesday, but I still wanted to obviously get some stuff. So hats off to my shop for being great to my kid, great to me, and really embraced the thing that I try to do on Halloween, kind of sponsoring it. And, I try to direct the kids from the neighborhood to that store because I love it. There are shops in the area that have more back issues. There are shops in the area that have more new comics. There are probably shops in the area that have more weekly subscribers, but I do not believe there is a shop that treats their customers better. So, initially I set this book aside on Wednesday, still thinking that I was going to come in early. And part of the thing is like, when we go to the shop, there's usually not a ton of people there. I try to go during, like, I take a break from work, bike up there, and then just work later on Wednesdays, because they do like a Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or something. And the little guy tends to get a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of people, and those dudes, like, they don't care about, like, making, it's kind of a bum out, but they don't really give a rip about making room for a kid to sit there and, like, read through whatever he's reading through while I'm getting my stuff, So I was like, hey, I'm going to put something in my box so that I can, still support the shop, but I'm not going to be able to have the time on a day like Free Comic Book Day to look through stuff and know that he's not, like, in somebody's business or going to be snatched, because, yeah. So got to keep an eye on him at all times. And sometimes when it's just me and him and the employees, we've all got eyes on him. So what I did was I really like this Spider-Man Superman issue. And I've been redoing a few spaces in old Basement HQ. The one that's really been changed is my office. And there's one section now, one tiny section in the very corner. You have to kind of peek around something to find it. And that's where I have any DC stuff, because I'm biased. I grew up Marvel, but I've being a father, I'm like, if the kid wants to read Superman, he can read Superman. So there's a little tiny Kenner Superpower Superman down there. And this is where I'm putting this stuff. And so I saw this and I thought this was cool. That was the front of it. And I didn't even realize this, but that was the back of it, which I thought was anyways, I thought it was cool. I like the issue. So that was what I had, like, set aside. I was like, oh, I don't know what else to get. I'll grab that. And then as he was enjoying his cake with his mother and I was looking around, I was looking through some Thor, and I found issues 267, 270 with this great Thor fighting Blastar, and then 273 with Thor taking on the Serpent of Midgard. And these are all early Simonson. Like, it's not part of Simonson's run, and it's certainly not Simonson's art style. It looks like a very early Simonson art style. But I was like, oh, that's cool. Those look fun. So I grabbed those. And then to satiate Mr. McGroovy, who is a big cheerleader for Cornerbox Classics, and is chugging right along with me with his great OCBD, which is Old Comic Book Day. He's a big Gene Colan. To him, Gene Colan is to what John Byrne is to me and Mr. Akins. And so I have been dipping my toes into Gene Colan Daredevil. Because Gene Colan is actually the reason why I'm so hell-bent on getting the old guard's signatures while I can. Because the first time I ever went to New York Comic Con, I was unfamiliar with Gene Colan. I was relatively, I don't want to say new, because I wasn't new. I was a big X-Men guy. Gene Colan didn't write the X-Men, or didn't draw the X-Men. And when it came to the rest of the Marvel Universe, like, I had stuff, but I was not as it took me a couple years when I was into comics before I was realizing, like, who was who when it came to creators. And that it wasn't just, like, a stock bunch of, like the old, like, you'd be in the checkout line and there'd be, like, all the old, like, Disney cartoon Saturday morning things that are just like stock Disney style guys. Took me a while to realize, like, that wasn't the case. So anyways, when I went into New York Comic Con and I was, like, looking for, like, Bendis or somebody like that, nothing against Bendis, but it was like I sort of blew right past Gene Colan's table, and, like, I noticed it because he was like an older fella just hanging out at his table, like, nobody really around at that point. It was early. I'm sure it filled up. Then when I discovered his art, when I actually, like, when it clicked, A, how good it is, and B, just who he is in that, like, I sort of finally started paying attention to that type of thing. He was gone. And I regretted it. And so now it's like, nope. Like, that's why I'm going to cons. That's why I'm traveling 3 hours, so that I can thank David Michelinie for all of the wonderful stories that he has given me. And that's the purpose of these things. It's not to meet Sleestacks or Punch from Chips, unless Sleestacks and Punch from Trip had a great impact on you. Anyways, so last, picked up Daredevil number 70. Daredevil number 72, and Daredevil number 116 to cross off some classic Gene Colans that I can read tonight. So, yeah, I 100%, if you watched the last Wednesday video, I 100% planned on doing a Cornerbox Classics this weekend, but I did not, because I was not. Wednesday, I had no idea that I was going to suddenly decide, like, hey, the weather sucks, let's pivot to driving all the way down to Cleveland. But I am happy that I did, because I got to give David Michelinie a high five after his hand was done cramping from signing all these kick-ass comic books to me and my kid, for all the absolute wonderful, like, seriously, so much good stuff that he has read. And it was nice to visit a different shop, and it was nice, like, it was nice to come back to our shop and have the little guy get a hero's welcome and see him light up when he was there. Like, because when he was like, we're going to the comic book store, he meant his comic book store. And when we first showed up to Carolyn John's, he was like, what the fuck is this? This isn't my shop. So, there's that. So, how would you celebrate Free Comic Book Day? Let me know in the comments. I did pick up, I grabbed, I purchased bundles of the free comic books, because I passed them out at Halloween. And so I didn't technically need to get any free comic books. But I did grab a Garfield one for Hank, which was awesome because then when we got home and after dinner, after everything was settled down, he asked to watch a Garfield episode. And I was like, look, we have just had a like nonstop comic book day. And that was awesome. It's definitely, will he remember it? He's 4, so there's a slight chance. But I will. I for sure will. And that's what this is all about. So, that was Free Comic Book Day. Normally, it's like, I get excited about it, and then when I actually follow through with it, I'm kind of like, yeah, it was fun, but, you know, the people who show up once a year to the comic book store kind of take a little bit of the shine off of it for me. But this year, doing a family trip to meet a great creator, and then coming home to our shop and having them be as wonderful as they are to my kid really hammered home just how wonderful this community is. So, there you have it. Tease me for all the David Michelinie books I got signed in the comments. Let me know what you did on Free Comic Book Day. Yeah. And thanks for listening and taking this ride with us. And I will be back on Wednesday for New Comic Book Day. Bye.